Hi, I'm Pat Freeman and welcome to my garage. Today we got the BMW i8 up on the quick jacks so we can install some splitters on the front bumper. So what kind of front splitter is this? BMW actually sells an Aero Kit and it comes as an option on new BMW i8s. So I found that we can actually purchase this as a retrofit kit. These are the two front splitters that attach to the front of the bumper. But in order to support them well enough, we need to replace some parts underneath the bumper. Here's the splitter piece that goes on the driver's side of the car, and it's going to be mounted under here, like so. It's actually going to provide more of an aesthetic look than provide much downforce, because the bottom of the bumper actually curves up. So air will hit this and then go down. I don't see how air is going to hit this and help push down and provide much downforce at all for the front of the car. But it does look kind of cool. These are real BMW parts with real BMW part numbers. Check the description below for the links on how to acquire these parts online. Okay, first things first. We're on the creeper and we're going to take a look underneath the i8. So, here's our front bumper. And if we come down underneath, we can see this piece here. This is the piece that needs to be replaced in order to support the i8 splitters that came from BMW. And then the splitter itself will need to be retrofitted into the existing bumper. What does that mean? Well, we're going to have to remove these two bolts here, but we're also going to have to drill several holes in here in order to mount the splitter to the bottom of the bumper. Now, what do I mean by having to drill holes? Well, I get some reflection here, but this hole and this hole go to the existing bolts that are already in the bumper. There's other holes here that don't have a place to sit, and then there's also tiny little pivot points, I guess, or studs that can go into holes in the bumper on both sides of the splitter. So we have to make holes in order to support this. But the first thing we have to do is go ahead and replace the piece that's currently under the car in front of the wheel arches with these on both sides. So we're going to start with an 8mm socket, and there are three, one here, and one here, 3 bolts in the wheel arch area that we're going to start with first. I started with a larger ratchet, but clearly I need my small 1/4-inch drive ratchet in order to get in between this bolt and the tire. Next we'll remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts, and we should be able to pull this panel down and out. Now we can remove the panel very easily, it appears. While we have this piece out, let's take a look and see what's inside the i8. Here's the aluminum frame that goes up to the front, and cross member here, in front of our tire. And this is a cooling duct for the brakes. Yeah, there's the horn, right in there. Yeah, it looks like some computer modules, and up above that should be the headlight assembly. And you can see where some pieces of the frame go together there. I always find this interesting. So let's take a look at the piece that came out of the i8 versus the piece that's going in. This is the piece that came out. They look almost identical except for one key difference. This is where your front tire is, and this sticks down into the airstream, and there's a hole in it. You flip it over to the other side and see the hole. And I don't know if this is to let air out of the engine compartment and down. I find it quite interesting that the piece that is replacing it does not have that. There's no hole here. There's nothing. It's completely flat. I find it interesting. Now, if we put the splitter in the location where it should be mounted, everything lines up nicely on the new piece. Take a look at the piece that came off of the i8, line it up where it should be mounted. Looks good. And look at that. It's actually designed to go around this piece that comes down on the old cover on the bottom. So I'm not sure why the retrofit kit requires that you replace this cover with this cover. I'm not exactly sure, and you may be able to get by with the stock cover. But we're going to put the new cover on because we already bought it. It was special order and not returnable. We're going to take our new cover and fit it where the old cover used to be. So first we're going to tuck it inside and under the bumper and under the wheel arch. Next we're going to bolt it into place, but we're not going to put the bolts in at the bumper yet, because that's where the splitter is going to go. Now that I have all the bolts started, and this seems to be floating, I can go ahead and at least get the front splitter started about the location where it's supposed to be so that we can prepare for the necessary drilling that we'll need to do to finish the installation. And I'm going to snug these bolts in place so I can get a better idea what it's going to be like when this is ready to be mounted. As we can see, the i8's already taking on a new personality. The little front splitters are sticking out there in the front. It's got a neat aesthetic to it. Even though it may not be functional, looks pretty neat. Alright, so this is just barely mounted to the bottom of the bumper. Now just getting an eye, see where everything lines up. You know, we got a little stud here that we're going to have to drill a hole in the bumper in order to mount that stud. There's another one in the back, and there's 4 holes in here. We're also going to have to drill holes into the bumper. So let's go ahead and take this splitter back off. So put some painter's tape on the bottom of the bumper so we know exactly where we need to drill. I have an idea whereabout I want this to be, but there's plenty of play in some of these eccentric holes. So I'm going to have to determine exactly where I want it before I drill any holes. So let's go ahead and tighten up the rest of this cover so that we have good support underneath and there's no mistakes that we make by drilling in a location where we shouldn't. Okay, now that everything is in place, let's see how this looks now. Yep, we still have the same amount of movement, which is okay. We just need to decide now how far in things need to be pushed so that everything lines up properly on the outside. Now if we take a close look at the bottom side of the splitter, you could see that there's an indentation here. And what I'm trying to do is line up the indentation with the bottom of the bumper. Same on this side. If I feel where it should be, it's about there. So it looks like this location here where the cutout is where everything should line up. What's sort of a pain is that these studs that stick out really have no hole to go into, and I need to decide where that hole is going to be before I put anything in place. I decided to take a crayon and mark the stud on each side of the splitter. So that when it's mounted in place, it'll leave a black mark in the painter's tape. I can now see where I'm going to drill my holes. Now that I have two decent crayon marks, I can use a center punch to make sure that my drill bit stays centered. The stud on the splitter appears to be about 4 millimeters in diameter. So I pulled out a 5/32 inch drill bit, and that's just a little under 4 millimeters. So you can make a couple holes in the bottom of this bumper. Let's see how our splitter fits. What holds the remaining part of the splitter onto the bottom of the bumper are these push rivets, little plastic rivets. Link in the description for these as well. These are BMW part, and there's 4 of them per splitter. So they would go into the hull and then push into place in order to retain the splitter in 4 different locations. So we're going to have to drill a hole for these. These are about a 1/4 inch in diameter. Next, I'm going to take this 9/16 inch masonry bit because it fits exactly in the hole. And if I just give it a twist, it's going to create a divot in the bumper beneath so that we can go ahead and find center for drilling these holes. Next, we'll take our 1/4 inch taper bit, it's the second notch here, and make a 1/4 inch hole. And we'll make sure that our rivet fits. It does. A little hard to get out of there now. That's why we have our handy dandy rivet puller. Pulls that right out. Okay, let's go ahead and make the holes for the other 3. Okay, now let's make sure everything fits well. Actually, we could take the tape off. Start on this end, should be easier. Excellent. I'll go ahead and put in our bolts and then push the pins into the rivets. Excellent. Wow, that feels really sturdy. I cleaned up my fingerprints from all the black surfaces, and I think it looks pretty cool. It's hard to see how it looks on video compared to how it is in person. I think especially since it's dark in my garage, but I think it looks neat. The other side, there's nothing there. This side, splitter. So the splitter is very well mounted to the bumper now. It's very secure using the fasteners that I got from BMW. All the parts that I use today are going to be linked in the description. But the next step is to actually go onto the other side. So I got to repeat the same process over here. This concludes the how-to video on how to install the BMW Aero Kit splitters up here in the front of the BMW i8. They look pretty cool, but the functionality is not what you expect. The front bumper actually curves up into the air. So by adding these splitters, there's not a whole lot of extra downforce. Shout out to Ido Popkin. He has developed a front splitter that actually does provide downforce. Now, I didn't buy that splitter for this car because I have been impacting some of the roads around me as I'm going up and down hills. So I wanted more clearance. But honestly, he's done a lot of work in designing this front splitter that will actually help downforce, and it looks good too. So link in the description below to Ido. Also, shout out to Ido. I had a question for him in the midst of installing these front splitters. The cover that BMW sells here with this a little notch in it, this is between the splitter and the front tire. This was the factory installation from my 2015. This was in the car, and it was recommended by the BMW Retrofit Guide to switch to the flat bottom cover. According to Ido, I would probably be better off by leaving these on the car. This will generate less drag. This notch here will actually push air down and around the tire to generate less drag. So, it is what it is. We'll drive it the way it is for right now, but I can always go back. But if you're considering purchasing these splitters, you probably can avoid purchasing the covers. So thanks for watching this how-to video, and keep an eye on my channel for more on the BMW i8. Oh, and I almost forgot. A shout out to the man that got me this t-shirt. This is JT from Cars Guys. All that matters is Cars Guys. Hey, he's a great guy. Check out his channel. He's a Corvette owner, previous Corvette owner. Appreciate all the information he's been posting online about his car and what's coming up with the C8 Corvette. I'm looking forward to seeing him at Corvettes of Carlisle this coming weekend as well. Take care.